you know, get it, you know, Free Fire, slow motion, shooting, whatever. Hey, what's up, guys? Film fan 0599 here again, and today we're going to review Free Fire. So, Free Fire stars Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, Cillian Murphy, and Sharlto Copley. And what this film is basically about, it's about when, there's a deal going on, and something happens at this deal that makes everything go wrong, and now basically a gigantic Free Fire happens in this deal. So, what did I think of Free Fire? Now, I was actually pretty excited for Free Fire. I actually, was pretty excited for it. I thought, from the looks of the trailers and everything, I thought it looked like a pretty exciting, just, laid back, chillax action movie, that just looked like a ton of fun. Like, just a movie you could just sit back and have a lot of fun with. And I was honestly excited to see what they could do with it. And I was disappointed, really. I really was. I was so disappointed with this movie. This is not a bad movie by any means, don't get me wrong, but man, it could have been just so much better. Like, really, the main problem with this movie to me is that the characters are so uninteresting, that the characters and the storyline, and even, the Free Fire action scene are all uninteresting. Like, it really is. This movie is so bland to me, and so just lifeless. Like, it's such a bland movie to me. Like, I was just like, really? Like, it's such a bland movie to me. Like, it really was. Like, I thought this movie was such a bland film. And I'll get more into why I think that. But let's first start off of why there's some positives with this movie. There's some things I liked, and let's get into them. And the things I liked are, first being, most of the acting was really good in this movie. I will say most of the acting was pretty solid in the film. Brie Larson, I thought she was really good. I enjoyed her. She thought, she really brought enthusiasm to her character. She was really great. I enjoyed her in the film. I really enjoyed her. She did a really good job in my eyes. I thought she just, brought a lot to her character, and she was really good. So yeah. Armie Hammer was very enjoyable too. He was actually pretty funny as well. I did enjoy him in the movie as well. He was enjoyable to watch on screen. Seemed like he was having a lot of fun with this movie. So yeah, he was enjoyable. Cillian Murphy was really good too. I thought he did a pretty solid job. And probably my favorite character in this entire movie was Sharlto Copley. This guy, I swear, every time this guy is in a movie, he steals the show. Like, seriously, he steals the show in almost every movie he's in. And this one is no exception, because this guy is so... I swear, his character is like a donkey on cocaine. Like, it is seriously like a donkey on cocaine. That's his character. And it's awesome. I loved him in this movie. He brought so much charisma and so much, life to his character. He was just so great. Like, I loved him in the movie. He was so awesome in the film. He was just so great to watch on screen. He was definitely by far the best character in this entire film. He was just so enjoyable to watch on screen. So yeah, and some of the other acting is not too bad either. Like, really not too bad, some of the other acting. I will say there is some points where the Free Fire action scene was actually pretty enjoyable. I will say it's like in the middle portion where it got kind of interesting, and I was like, okay, this is pretty fun, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty fun. I'm actually, somewhat getting with this now, and, I will admit, it was fun for that, brief middle section point, and then kind of got uninteresting again. But I will say, when it got to that middle portion, I actually thought it was pretty fun. It was actually quite enjoyable. And I will admit that the movie is also somewhat of a comedy as well, at points as well. And I will admit, I was laughing at some points. I will admit there were some jokes that did actually make me laugh. And I was like, okay, that's pretty funny. So yeah, there were some points where I did think it was actually pretty funny when they tried to incorporate humor into the movie, and they actually did a pretty good job with it. I like how they got the aesthetic of the 70s down. You know what I mean? Like, and not really in the atmosphere, but this movie does take place in the 70s, but not really in the atmosphere, just with, like, the clothing, the hairstyles, the mustaches even. Like, I just like how they get that aesthetic of the 80s, not the 80s, of the 70s, I meant to say, of the 70s down. Like, with the clothing and the, hairstyles and the mustaches. Like, it's just so great how they get that aesthetic of the 70s down in this movie. It's so awesome. I absolutely love how they get the aesthetic of the 70s down in this movie in terms of, like, the clothing and the hair and the mustaches. It's just so awesome. So, yeah. I will say, for the most part, the directing is pretty good for the most part, really. Like, I thought it was pretty solid. The directing was pretty solid for the most part, really. Like, it was very well filmed for the most part, and the cinematography was pretty good, too. So, yeah, I will admit the movie, for the most part, is pretty well filmed. So, yeah, and the writing's pretty solid, too. I did think, for the most part, the writing was pretty solid as well. So, yeah. Now, the negatives that I have with this movie. First being the characters. Like I said before, I found the characters to be, for the most part, really uninteresting and just not that enjoyable to me. Like, they were just some uninteresting characters, really. Like, they seriously were. They were just very uninteresting. I thought Cillian Murphy was really good in the movie, but his character, really, to me, wasn't all that interesting. Like, I was like, your character, you're good in the movie, you're putting on a solid performance, but your character's just not that interesting. And people that are with Cillian Murphy on his team and whatever, they're really not that interesting either. There's two guys in this movie that are just atrocious. Like, their acting is just terrible in this movie, and their characters are just really terrible as well. I was just like, really? So, yeah, there are some two guys in this movie that were really terrible. And also, all the other characters, really. The only characters I cared for were Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, and Sharlto Copley. All the rest of the characters, really, were just uninteresting and bland to me. That same goes with the story. The story is honestly really bland as well. It's a very bland storyline. Like, I just found it to just be really lifeless and really bland, and I could care less, honestly. For the most part, I could really care less. There's some points where they tried to incorporate humor in the movie, and it didn't really work for the most part for me. Like, I was just like, I'm not really digging this for the most part. Like, for the most part, I didn't really find it that funny, really. Like, they tried to incorporate humor into this movie, and it just doesn't really work for me for the most part. Some of the dialogue is not really that good. Like, some of the dialogue can be really bad. It's mostly towards those two characters that I mentioned, but there are some points where I'm just like, really, he said that? Like, it was just, yeah, there were some points where I thought the dialogue was pretty bad. And, sometimes the action sequences are not really that well filmed. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the action sequences can be a little bit, like, filmed a little bit shaky-wise. Like, not a lot throughout the film, but there are some times where the movie felt a little bit too shaky. Like, they'll, like, try to incorporate shaky cam, and I was just like, no, please, no. So, yeah, and the free fire sequence, for the most part, honestly, was also just very lifeless to me. Like, I just found it to be a really lifeless action sequence. Like, I'm supposed to be having fun with this. I'm just not interested in it because the characters in the story are bland, and just the way that this is going is very bland and honestly just forgettable, really. Like, it's just really bland. Like, like I said, when we get to that middle portion, that's when it became really fun, but then after that, it just became really dull again, and I was just like, really? Like, I thought you were finally picking up, and no, you're just going back to being just dull again. And this movie is so boring. Holy moly, this movie is boring. This movie is only an hour and 30 minutes. It's an hour and a half. And it was so boring. Like, seriously, because, like I said, I wasn't interested, really, in this movie for the most part. I really wasn't. It was just so boring to me. Because it's so bland and so dull. Like, that's my biggest issue with this movie, is that it's so bland and it is so dull. And I was so bored watching this movie. Overall, Free Fire, I think, is, man, it's mediocre at best to me. I know some people have enjoyed it, actually, and, cool, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but however I just found it to be just a really bland and just mediocre and forgettable movie, honestly. So, yeah. So, it's time for my official grade on Free Fire. My official grade on Free Fire is a C+. It's an okay movie. It's not bad by any means or anything. It's not a bad movie, but I honestly found it to be pretty forgettable and just lifeless and dull action movie. You know, so yeah, it's a pretty forgettable film to me. So yeah, it's not that good. It's okay at best, and I just didn't enjoy it all that much, and it definitely gets a C plus. So, what did you guys think of Free Fire? Leave in the comment section below. I'm FilmFan0599, and we will see you all later. Peace.